president to advise members of the audience that they may address the board regarding agenda items after the superintendent's report. Only those members whose names and addresses are listed on the sign-in sheet available prior to the start of the meeting will be recognized during new business. The chairperson will limit discussion of any item by the public to 3 minutes in order for the board to expeditiously conduct its business. Mr. Dolan.
Thank you, Mrs. Carney. All right, tonight my report's going to be broken up into a couple of segments. I have to read a statement from the governor. Mr. Harrison is going to do his budget presentation, and then the rest of the report will come in new business because we have a number of things that we have to talk about in new business in terms of activities, end of the year activities, the new face shields, and that'll all come in new business. But last September, Governor Cuomo signed legislation that requires public school districts to adopt a continuation of operations plan in the event that the governor declares a public health emergency involving a communicable disease such as we have now. This amendment will be added to our already existing safety plan. The plan must include protocols for operation involving a communicable disease emergency, and it must be posted to the district website by April 1st. What's in it? A list and descriptions of positions and titles considered essential in the event of a state-ordered reduction of in-person workforce. Description of protocols we will follow to enable all non-essential employees to telecommunicate. A description of the extent possible to stagger work shifts. Protocols to procure PPE. Protocols for exposure to a known case, exhibiting symptoms and testing positive. Actions for disinfecting work areas. Employer policy on available leave. Documenting work hours and work locations. Protocols to identify sites for emergency housing if needed. The district team met with the district bargaining units in January for a review of this plan, and we will be approving it this evening. So, and it'll be posted, and you'll be able to see it tomorrow. Not tomorrow? Oh, April 1st. I apologize. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, before Mr. Harrison takes over the mic, we're back in budget season. And again, that's a step on the road back to what we can call the new normal school. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to point something out to you. And this, Mr. Harrison's presentation, when it's finalized, will be put up on the website. I've said this time and time again, this Board of Education deserves a tremendous amount of credit because they have managed their finances very well. We are facing a tough economic times, but I believe we are prepared to get through them without devastating cuts to our programs. But it's going to require people to listen carefully, see the presentation, and understand the facts. And here's one simple fact that, if we had not planned properly, and like I said, I really give Mr. Harrison a lot of credit, the board, and Dr. Bells and Mr. Manzo. You'll see tonight that this budget is propped up by approximately $4 million in federal aid. Historically, if the federal government is going to be putting $4 million into our budget, that's a one-shot deal, which means the budget for the 22-23 school year will have a $4 million hole in it. If I had to say that to you 4 or 5 years ago, I would have been extremely nervous, and I would have a lump in my throat. But after looking at this presentation, watching what this team has done, I believe that with your support, with the community's support, and we want you to ask questions, we want you to listen carefully. We will have 2 more budget presentations over the next 6 weeks. Together, not only are we going to get through this crisis, these economic tough times, I think we're going to maintain our programs and even flourish. But once again, it's going to take cooperation. It's going to take, we need to listen. We need to, you need to listen to the presentation. We need to listen to your questions. We need to get you answers. But again, the reality is, this budget this year will give many a false sense of security. But this board has, and Mr. Harrison, Mr. Manzo, Dr. Bells, have been committed to a long-range view of stability for the district. So, Mr. Harrison, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. I also like to thank the Board of Education for giving me the opportunity to present today, as well as thank my colleagues and staff for getting us to the point of being able to make this presentation. A lot of effort on their part has helped me get to this point today. So thank you very much. So a little different from previous years, we've switched the order of the agenda. We're going to start with revenue, because as Mr. Dolan stated, there's a lot of hidden messages in the state aid proposal from the governor, so I thought it'd be best to start with that. Then about the property taxes, and then ease into the appropriations budget. So this screen depicts the governor's proposal for East Islip School District. And when you look at the bottom line total of an increase of 1.73%, you think, well, it's just like other years, we're not getting much, it's not too bad of a situation. But I did want to point out a couple different things. So if you look at the services aid line, that's a combination of 11 different aid categories that have been separated in the past. And in actuality, that is in large part based upon budgetary expenditures, not actual expenditures. So I'm forecasting that of that increase of $519,000, we're not going to see probably $400,000 of it, because we don't spend our total budget in the area of transportation and BOCES. So the way the governor projects this category, it's overstating what I feel is going to be our actual aid for next year in that category. And the next shaded box is what's called the local district funding adjustment. So here the state is shifting close to $3.3 million from its support of the district to the federal level, which is being backfilled by the COVID-19 supplemental stimulus. And that's the cliff that Mr. Dolan referenced a little bit earlier. Usually those are one-time shots, and then in the following year, the state doesn't pick up the funding that it gave up the year before, and the feds don't fund it for multiple years. So those are two big areas of concern that are currently in the governor's proposal. So I know this screen is probably different from what you have in your presentations, and I apologize, I had to shade a different box. But if you look at this services aid, this is the $6.3 million that showed up on the previous page. So based upon historical trends, transportation aid is usually $200,000 lower than what's being forecasted, because again, the governor has nothing to look at other than our budget, and because we don't always expend all our dollars in the budget, we're not going to get the state aid for that. And the same thing is holding true for BOCES aid. So you combine $300,000 to $400,000 here, along with the $3.3 million in pandemic adjustment. That cliff for the following year is going to be close to $4 million. The other okay, no problem. The one thing I'd like to mention also is that the governor has combined these aid categories into one number now. So instead of getting reimbursed in state aid from fluctuations in how we spend, he's going to be able to control that number much like he does foundation aid, and more than likely keep that flat. So if we, in the future, based upon inflation or spending trends, and we spend more on transportation, we spend more on BOCES, we're not going to get the prerequisite aid that we would have seen if they were separate aid categories. Okay, this chart here is in the presentation to help illustrate what happens when the state aid is shifted from the state to the federal level. So going back to 2008-09, This was the last time this happened, where the state backfilled our budgets with federal support. It took until 2016-17 to get back to the levels we were in 2008 and 09. So again, as Mr. Dolan correctly said, it's a one-shot infusion of federal funds, which took several years for the state to get back to the levels where we're at. So the 2022-23 state aid projection that we have is showing state aid less the pandemic adjustment that we're getting this year. So levels will drop to about $34.6 million. So the next component of revenue is the tax cap levy. And the calculation for 2020-21 reflects a 1.5% increase in the tax levy. So I'll just point out some key factors. The levy for this year is allowed to be increased by the amount of building that's going on in the boundaries of the district. So that's a factor of 1.009, and it estimates the construction that's going on now that has not yet hit the tax rolls. So it allows us to increase the tax levy by that amount. The next area is pilot payments. So those are payments the district receives in lieu of taxes. And as that goes up, that's a revenue source. So the formula says that you cannot increase your tax levy for that same amount. But what's important to note, going into the 22-23 school year, those pilot payments would cease to exist. So that, in theory, if all things are being equal, will give us an opportunity to raise the tax levy by the full amount of $613,000 in the 22-23 school year. The next set of numbers represents the local share for capital projects, and which means it's your debt service less your state aid on those projects. And while the number's only being adjusted by $400,000, there's a lot going on, because the old debt service on the old bond project is drawing to a close next year. It's our last payment, and our new debt service is coming on the books. So that's what's behind those numbers, causing this slight decrease of $400,000. And then finally, the 2% factor, which is the greater of, the lesser of 2% or CPI. So CPI for the past 12 months has been at 1.23%, which is less than 2%, so that's the rate we are allowed to increase our tax levy by, roughly $858,000. So when you put all these numbers together, the allowable levy, which requires only a simple majority passage by the community, is at 1.5%, or an estimated $1,081,000. Each district, if you looked at the same calculation, would have a different number. It's commonly referred to as the 2% rule, but these factors that I mentioned to you are different for each district, so they end up with a different result. The next screen we've been showing for a couple of years, and it just charts in the lighter color the actual percentage tax levy increase versus what it could have been. So there's a pretty decent track record going back to 2015-16 of being substantially below the calculated amount. For 21-22, it's a continued discussion at the board and administration level. However, for discussion purposes, our budget is built with a 1.5% tax levy, which meets the cap. So there's a price that comes with being below your tax levy each year, and that's what this next slide shows. So as an example, for 2020-21, we were below the tax levy cap by over $2.7 million. So below, going out of the 0% tax levy for this school year was $2.7 million below the amount we could have went out with as a district. So this shows you the annual gap that's between where we were and what we could have been. Now, as part of the formula, this actually compounds year after year. So if we went back and redid the numbers each year based upon what the cap could have been, that gap grows year to year to year. So as you see in 21-22, where we're proposing a $72.9 million tax levy, that number could have been as high as $81 million if we continue to go to the cap every year. So the impact to the local taxpayer in terms of school tax in the boxed set of numbers, you can see that the proposed levy, which is at the 1.5% increase, is almost identical to the school tax rate for 2014-15. So over that time frame, you can see there's been minor fluctuations, but in essence, the school portion of the community taxes are at the same amount as they were 6 years ago, 7 years ago. So in summarizing revenue, we have this pie chart which shows 60% of our revenue for the upcoming year is in the terms of property taxes. The next biggest slice of the pie at 28% is the state aid. And a number that's changed this year as prior years is the amount of money that we're taking out of our revenue reserve accounts to help support the budget. So that number is larger than it has been in prior years. It's at 6% of the budget, and it's $6.7 million that's coming out of reserves to support the budget for 21-22. So we thought it'd be a good time to look back over the past several years at the initiatives and accomplishments that have been part of the budget. I don't know that I'm going to read all these line by line. They're there for you to peruse. However, given the fact that the tax levy has been relatively stable for a long period of time, I do have to say that I think the list is quite impressive. There's been numerous upgrades in facilities as well as technology, as well as support for students. We've introduced new programs, including BOCE's occupational education as well as the cosmetology program. We've installed new phone systems, increased our internet capacity. So the list is very broad, and we were able to adapt fairly easily to the challenges of COVID-19. We didn't have to make any special appropriations in addition to our budgeted amounts for all the supplies and the equipment related to that. So we've been able to handle these things in stride. We did hire additional virtual teachers this year. So again, you can go through the list. There are many more worthwhile items here. I just feel it's a little too much to go line by line. All right, so we're going to move over to the appropriations side of the budget, and we're going to start with salary and benefits. Again, I've said this in the past, it's the major category of any school district's budget. Overall salary and benefits are going up 1.42% or $1.2 million. The salary part of the budget is going up less than 1%. There are a number of items impacting those categories. In all the units where the step increases have been applied. On the instructional side, we've had 10 retirements, so those teachers have been removed from the budget and replaced with introductory teachers coming in at a lower salary. Also included is a STEAM teacher. So overall, balancing off the increases in step versus the retirements, the teacher side of and the administrative side of the budget is going up just over 1%. So that holds true for the rest of the units. There are fluctuations based upon retirements and step increases, as well as increased activity with the security guards that we've seen over the past couple of years. On the benefits side, we have a couple of different things happening. When you have retirements, you're bringing new staff in. So in essence, you're adding 10 people to the medical benefits. You need to continue benefits for your retirees as well as offer benefits to your incoming employees. So medical insurance is expected to increase both for that factor as well as smaller increases in the premiums on. ERS and TRS rates, pension contributions are also increasing for both sets of employees. The TRS is going from 9.3% to 9.8%. And on the ERS side, the premium contribution for the district is 16.10. This year, it's going up to 18.10 next year. So I'd just like to point out some key differences here on the rest of the budget. Equipment expenditures are going down pretty significantly at $1.2 million. And that's essentially the one-to-one devices that we purchased this year that we're not going to be needing to purchase next year. In addition, buildings and grounds equipment that we bought this year are not going to need to again purchase next year, is not in the budget any longer. If we move down to the utility line, you see that's decreasing by $110,000, and that's the start of the energy savings relating to the solar that is just about ready to be turned on at the 3 buildings on the campus here. So we're very close. We're within weeks of having that system active. This is not the whole savings for that annual for these 3 buildings, because we do have additional electrical needs with the lighting on the campus. So it's a conservative decrease, but I feel it's one that we'll be able to adjust better in the subsequent year once we know better what the impact is going to be to the stadium lighting and other increases we've done. Moving down to the state aid recoupment, that's been removed from the budget. This year is the 5th of the last year of repayments, so that's been removed. And furniture and repair, we did increase that budget to continue our repairs of the unit ventilators throughout the district. As you know, we went into the energy performance contract. However, some of the unit ventilators that the performance contract was meant to manage are not working properly, so we're going to continue that so we can get the maximum benefit from the energy savings. Moving down to tuition, we've seen we had charter school students last year, and part of this year. We're not going to have them next year, so that's been removed from the budget, as well as looking at the special ed placements based upon actual students. We're going to be coming down there a little bit as well. So overall, moving to debt service, the changes you see there are the changes that are because of the new debt coming on the books and the old debts going off the books. We have the new debt for the energy performance contract, as well as the first set of projects that have been closed on the new bond. And then finally, on the interfund transfers, which are going down by $292,000. We had money in the budget this year to help pay for the air handle unit that was done on the high school roof above the auditorium. So since we're not going to need those funds again, it's been removed from the budget. So overall, this budget is relatively flat in total at 0.29%, or an increase of $353,000. So to maintain essentially the budget as it stands, this year compared to next year, it's a relatively flat budget of 0.29%. So some minor changes in the percent of the total. You see that salary and benefits make up 73.4% of the total. That's going up slightly because we've decreased our spending on the equipment side and a few other areas. So that's going to shift very slightly back onto the staffing side. So overall, again, I've said this before, that this screen will look very similar to most districts across the state. And this is just a representation of the smaller categories that we talked about previously and the changes that from year to year. So outside of salary and benefits, roughly 26.6% of the budget is in these categories. So this is just a chart that summarizes the various things we just talked about. Again, the 21-22 information is just for discussion purposes, and it's supporting the first draft of the budget. So the tax levy is going up in the first draft at 1.5%. If you do an average over the 5 years, the average increase is 0.72%, which backs up the chart I showed you earlier, that the tax rate's been essentially stable for a good number of years. And as you can see, the budget as well for the past 3 years has been kept within the $500,000 increase, which is very minimal. And that's also important to note, because I think what we're going to see happening, and we've already seen it for this year, is that as we keep the budget flat, expenses are coming up to meet that budget amount, which means that surpluses are going to be dwindling starting this year and over the next several years. And finally, on the appropriated fund balance, and that's reserve spending. So we're taking out of reserve almost $6.8 million, which you see we really haven't been at that level for the past several years. But given where we're at, that's the amount that was needed to balance the revenue side and the expense side of the budget. So again, calendar of events, our next presentation is on March 11th, which will finally culminate in a budget vote on May 18th. So at this point, I will take questions from the board and administration.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison.
You're welcome.
If I may start, I just have two questions. For the service aid, you're expecting that it was overstated by 400,000
Approximately, yes.
approximately? Okay. And have we been in touch with the town of Islip regarding the pilot? Will they be rolling that pilot forward, or do we know that it will be suspended at the end of it?
I haven't heard any new information. I have to reach out again.
Inquire, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great. This is a terrific first draft. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Zachary?
Mr. Harrison, on the one page, you said that if we went to the cap every year, that the taxes would be around 82 million now?
The
Is that
tax
right?
levy, yes.
So they'd be over 10% higher if we went to the cap every year for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yes.
Also, if we approve your budget with a 1.5% increase, is there a chance, like in past years, that the actual increase to the homeowners would be less than 1%?
Well, there are a number of factors impacting the actual tax rate to the homeowner. One of them is the proportion of the homestead versus non-homestead, as well as increase in assessed valuation. So there's a very distinct possibility that could happen. It's just those are factors that are outside of our control.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, there's a lot of factors impacting that. The federal money that would come in is not directly to the district. It comes in through the state. So it's depending on what the state decides to do with those funds. But this budget from the governor was built on, I believe, a $6 billion infusion from the federal government. So anything above that amount would be additional, and it would be up to the governor to decide how it flows down to the district. Well, we'll certainly take a look at it. The additional money that might be coming through from the federal to the state may have stipulations on how it's delivered to the different school districts. It may be based on factors such as poverty or Title I spending. So it's not a clear slam dunk that each district's going to get a proportionate share of those funds that come out. So all I'm saying is there's more to be said here, and there may be restrictions on the money and how it's spent. But yes, there's a bit. I believe it's at the state level. Yeah, but if we do get that information in time, certainly we'll bring it to discussion, and we'll see how to appropriately apply those additional funds.
And Mr. Montori, just as I'd like to reiterate this, our concern is not what the government's going to give us today, because the money coming from the federal government, we need to share it with our partners at the town and the county and the local governments. But whatever we get this year, is we don't anticipate, the feds don't come back 2 years in a row. They essentially they're gonna give us money this year, and to a person, everything we're hearing is be ready for next year, because historically, and one of, Steve has a good chart in here about what happened the last time we lost aid due to an economic crisis and how long it took us. It took us almost 8 years to get back to back to where we were. We're looking at a projection of maybe 4 to 5 years, because this is a different kind of economic crisis. But that federal money is, while greatly appreciated, and we'll take every penny we can get, we're also thinking about next year and the year after.
These are all factors and decisions we'll make depending on how much. It's not meant to be put on the side, no. But the budget would have to be reconfigured, adjusting reserves and other revenues to accommodate the new money. So it's going to be just based upon what's received and what the restrictions are and how you can best apply it. It's, yes, this is just the first draft of the budget.
Of the current total fund balance that the district carries. So in the event that we have a $4 million shortfall over multiple years, we are sustainable 3 to 4 years on reserve.
There are certain, the short answer would be yes.
Okay.
But as you know, each one of the reserves has a restriction on it, not necessarily meant to be spent for general fund usage. And primarily I'm talking about the capital reserve. So being that there's close to $4 million in that reserve, there'd have to be some sort of legislative approval or action taken to spend that on other things, such as the general fund budget.
Okay, great. Any other questions? No? All right, thank you so much for this presentation, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Dolan, anything further with your superintendent report?
Well, I'm gonna yield most of it to new business, but I would like to just summarize. First of all, I want to thank Steve. This is always an arduous process, and he's got to get a lot of information. And I know Paul and Lisa helped him, but Steve carries, this is a big burden, and I really applaud the fact, and I can't stress it enough. If you get the facts, you look at the facts. Steve has spearheaded with the support of the board. I think excellent fiscal management, but we're not afraid. We're not backing off. We're not going to panic, but we are anticipating several years of, depletion in state aid. And, we've worked very hard through this pandemic, and we also know that we've made a lot of investments in the district. We've reinvested our money, and we also have, a contract situation where our teachers have been without a contract, our custodians without a contract, our administrators and clericals are up. And, we have to work with them in good faith, because they are they're the people that make the day-to-day operations run. And, I think that we do have some long days ahead of us, but the long-range thinking, and if we continue with open lines of communication, we're not going to run away from the tough days, and we're not going to hide from the tough days. And I think the sacrifices we made over the last 4 or 5 years, or the tough decisions we made over the last 4 or 5 years, you folks should, I'm very proud to be a part of something where, we looked at ourselves, we made adjustments, and now, the proverbial rainy day is here, and we're going to take it on and not, hopefully not face devastating cuts to our programs, that would harm our kids. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dolan. So we're moving on to public comment on the agenda items only. Anyone in the audience? No? So certified personnel. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the resignations, terminations, leave of absence, position abolitions, employment appointments, tenure appointments, and salary changes in accordance with applicable provisions of education law and civil service law as cited in the certified personnel attachment. You got a motion? Discussion? All in favor? Non-certified personnel. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the resignations, terminations, leave of absence, position abolition, employment appointments, tenure appointments, and salary changes in accordance with applicable provisions of education law and civil service law as cited in the non-certified personnel attachment. Do I get a motion? Discussion?
Are you talking about student teachers, or are you talking about non-certified substitute teachers? Substitute teachers? Yeah, if they have a bachelor's degree, they can substitute for up to a certain amount of days for us.
Any further discussion? All in favor? District operational plan. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the district's operational plan for public health emergencies involving communicable diseases. This plan will be posted on our district's website. Get a motion? Discussion? I think Mr. Dolan summarized it well. So thank you for that. All in favor? Perfect. Short agenda this week. Now we're on to old business. Anyone have any old business? No? Mr. Dolan, did you want to just address some of the things that were lingering from last meeting during old business?
Two of the things from the old business, I don't remember.
You could just go through the litany that you're gonna, I think, do you want to go over that now or no, during new business?
Oh, you mean face shields and the things? You have the new business or old business? I'm easy.
Well, we're up to new business now. So
All
you're
right,
on.
let's do it. I knew if I waited long enough to
Now
get
we're
the
on
new.
new business.
All right,
Oh, actually, no, the district's operational plan for public health emergencies, which we already did, right? I don't understand how that was in new business. So are we bringing up this district's operational plan for public health? That was under new business on the agenda?
Yeah, that plan has to be, will stay available for, till April 1st, that's when it gets posted on the website.
Right, okay, perfect. So, new business.
no. What we're doing is, all along, the key to getting back into school has been to try to get people to be comfortable. Now, that doesn't mean we let them do what they want, but we were told we had to have desk shields originally. Then once other areas started to change, things, in the sports area, kids could wrestle, we appealed again, because we had appealed several times to the Department of Health, could we have face shields? What we're saying now is we purchased face shields, and we're giving every student on the secondary level a face shield. And I had a great day today. I went into about a dozen classes at the middle school, and I said, how do you like the face shields? We hate them. Okay, you can use a desk shield. No, we hate those too. I said, okay, then we'll stay home and do virtual school. We said, no, we don't want to do that. We want to come to school. And I said, the students were great, very honest. And I said, unfortunately, we have to do something, but we have a choice. There was a nice young lady who had a very pretty pair of glasses, but they were kind of large, and she said these aren't really comfortable, and that she'd prefer contact lenses, and I didn't want to get involved in that conversation, so I simply said, look, when I wore the face shields for about 3 days, the Department of Health said to me, before you do this, why don't you wear it and see what it's like? I learned a good lesson. If I put my mask on properly, and I have the metal bar up here, and I put my glasses below the metal bar, they fit. Most glasses, not all, will fit on the face shield, onto the face shield, and it doesn't fog up. Now, some students prefer, or say now they prefer the desk shields. We're asking the students to please try the face shield for a couple of days. We bought them, we gave them to them. It's actually a good thing. They can wear them on the bus, which gives us a little more protection on the buses. But like everything else, I think most students are going to grow accustomed, because I said to them the first day I wore it, I went home, I whined to my wife, I didn't want to do it, and she said, well, go back to work, honey, and try it again. And I grew to like it. And I had the desk shield on my desk. I would work and put the desk shield, and I didn't really like the desk shield. But, Steve might like the desk shield, Paul might like the desk shield. We can't give people a lot of choice, but students are going to have the choice. Do you want to carry a shield with you from class to class, or do you want to wear this? And more importantly, have your mask on, and that's how we're going to stay healthy. So they will have the option, but they have to do one or the other. And I actually had one person say they want to do both, and I said, okay. Yes. We're and you notice we again, being flexible, that's the key. Being flexible, having options, not too many options, but getting people comfortable and accustomed. If you remember, we were going to deal with the elementaries February 1st going back. We said, no, we're bringing the high school and middle school back, so we need a little more time. We said, look, the elementaries, knock on wood, students are in class, they have their shields, they're a little different, they wear their masks. We're not going to put them down there yet. If the demand arises, or if people begin to ask, we'll begin to address it. But we want to see how it goes at the secondary level. We have all the desk shields, so if for some reason the face shields don't work, we could certainly revert back, pivot back. But I will tell you this: the students I saw as the day went on, I think they were starting to get comfortable. And that the toughest thing is, they come home and my kids used to come home and say, Dad, I don't like this, and my heart would go in my throat. And then 2 days later, they're not talking about it. We have to give the students time to get accustomed. And I'll tell you, the teachers, the teacher aides, the librarians, custodians, they were handing them out in the library in the middle school, and I'm going to the high school tomorrow. They're really taking a positive approach. And so, again, we can't let them do whatever they want, but if you can give people options at a time like this, so that they can make a choice and be comfortable, you're going to get much, much better buy-in. So that's where we're at. Teachers have them, yeah. Well, the teachers can double up on the masks. The teachers can wear the masks. They're encouraged to wear them. The teachers are wearing them. The teachers got them. So, yeah. No? Okay, we'll look into that. And I think maybe that might have been my mistake. We might have just made an assumption.
They have the option to wear them if they choose to. Yes.
Yeah, well, they also have the desk shields also. Paul, you're right. I apologize. The second announcement is beginning, this is one. This is a tough one for me. We've struggled. We've come a long way. We're beginning to see a decrease in the number of virtual students at the high school and middle school level. Beginning April 5th, coming out of April break, Mondays will no longer be virtual. And we are looking at ending virtual school on the secondary level, sometime in the spring. There's a lot of question marks, a lot of legalities. We're working with our attorneys on this. Again, masks, face shields, desk shields. We want to try to return to as normal a school atmosphere as possible. So virtual Mondays will end beginning April 5th. And then with the next step in the process, we'll be looking to, possibly end virtual school. But again, we're going to have to work with our attorneys on that, because that was a directive from the governor, but the governor seems to be backtracking on a number of things right now. So, and last but not least, and this one gets a little bit lengthy, but I wanted to say, last year at this time, if you think about it, last year at this time, COVID had not yet hit our hallways. At the end of March, I believe it was the end of March or right at the beginning of April, we made a statement as a district that we were going to have a live in-person graduation. And I'm going to use that "we" very generously, because I was the one who made the phone call home, and I remember going home that night saying to my wife, "Oh my God, what did I just do?" Because if we don't have a live graduation, they may hang me, tar and feather me in front of the high school. But we felt at that time that it was important for the community to hear that we're an academic institution. Graduation is the culmination of 13 years of sacrifice, commitment, dedication from, the student, the family, the teachers. It's a very special and sacred occasion. I get teased a lot about the activities I go to, because, my hobby is going to watch kids, at games and in concerts and plays. But the most sacred event in our profession, the secondary school, is the high school graduation, because it is a celebration of 13 years of hard work and commitment, again, from the student, the families, and the school. We did it. We had a graduation. It wasn't the traditional graduation, but I've said it, and I'll say it publicly again. 36 graduations. It's the one I will absolutely never forget. It was a very emotional and very, I think, intimate and sentimental day, with students and parents sharing in that special moment. What made me sad is, we didn't have, the teachers and the extended family there, but we knew that they were there in spirit. This year, our goal is to continue to return to traditional events. I had a great phone call from a parent the other day who wanted to do the drive-by parades, and it dawned on me that last year we did drive-by parades because the kids were home and wanted to come see their teachers. Now the kids are in school with their teachers. How can you, the kids are going to stay home to drive by school? People are asking questions and they want solid dates, and I know people want to make plans, but quite frankly, it's February 25th, and we do not know what the rules are going to look like in June or at the end of May. But here's my promise to you. At the elementary level, field day is a big day. I see barring a major change, or something, something goes awry with the virus, a day like field day should be able to happen. It'll look different than it did in the past, but we can do it in a safe way. We're going to have to limit the number of guests, but we would like to try to get at least the parents there. There are small musical ensembles that people are beginning to talk about the possibility of very small concert-type things outdoors in very controlled settings. And we will keep you posted. As far as the moving up ceremonies, again, we have a framework. We saw what we did last year, and we anticipate having, in-person moving up ceremonies. Now, we have a beautiful facility here now. We have a beautiful campus that we would like to show off. We would like the parents to see it. We want the children to see it. We want the children to want to go to high school here, not go other places. We do have plans in the works to have, between the outdoor stadium and possibly some, the promenade area over by the high school, to be able to set up some chairs in a socially distanced fashion and have moving up ceremonies. Moving over to the middle school, the same thing. We do have limited resources, especially our manpower, but we are going to do our best to have the basic traditional, some small award ceremonies, and moving up ceremonies. Now for the high school. There's been a lot said. I've had several conversations. I'm just going to read a list of things, and again, I apologize because the dates may change based on how we set up the campus. The dates may change based on the availability of equipment, but our goal now is starting. We are filming, and here this is hot off the presses, and I give Mrs. Affelt a lot of credit because I just got a text message. We didn't think we could have anybody come and watch the play performance at the high school. We have 60 students that have worked very hard, and they are filming a virtual play. And I'm going to announce it here tonight. We're going to look to get those students' parents to come or invite them on March 12th to at least see some part of the filming. Again, it's not what we've done in the past, but we are starting to move forward. All right? Mrs. Affelt, Mr. Nesky, Ms. G have worked very hard to put together a virtual play because that's what we were told we had to do. You can't change the play a week before the play. But we are going to work, and I'll work on it. I just found this out, so we'll work on this tomorrow morning. Now I'm going to read you a list of things that probably aren't everything, but we're looking to do, especially geared towards the senior class. Especially geared towards the senior class. And we will do the best we can to get some things for some of the underclassmen. But again, we're going to focus our resources on the seniors. Breakfast of Champions, student lip sync battle, high school concerts 1 and 2, the junior prom, the Art and Jazz Festival, the SAD PTSA fashion show, the Tri-M music recital, the National Honor Society induction, the World Language Honor Society induction, Tri-M induction, Senior Awards Night. Now that one is a bit of a bear, and that one may have to be virtual just because of the sheer size of it. Senior Math and Science Honor Societies, investiture ceremonies, National Honor Society, high school sports nights, possibly only the seniors, a senior prom, and a senior barbecue, and a graduation. Graduation is scheduled for June 24th, rain date the 25th. People are asking me how many people can come. We don't know yet, and we will have plans to accommodate whatever the numbers are. I'm going to stress, we are working with the building administrators and the PTAs who have been extremely cooperative. We are looking to add a senior trip, a possible trip either to, for a beach barbecue down at Cedar Beach or at Adventureland. There's going to be a meeting of the senior class early in March. Look, all of these things, especially these celebrations of accomplishments, are important. And, we're going out on a limb, and we're going to trust, and we are going to try to have outdoor venues that are covered and open air. We're going to put them in places where we can socially distance. And again, I'll apologize up front, but right now we're going to promise that it'll be each student will be able to bring 2 guests. And I commend the folks who run these ceremonies for having the courage to stand up and say, hey, this is a school and this is how we roll and this is what we do. We're going to ask for the community's cooperation and patience, because we might be able to do more in June than we can do in May, and we might have to move things into June. Right now, the schedule that I'm looking at, which ends with a graduation rehearsal on June 15th, is a strange calendar for me because it leaves about a week and a half between graduation rehearsal and graduation. But there's a place where we're going to use those days for rain dates, and also, last year we had a couple of new events, parades, And, we may be able to do those things also, because they were very well received. Last year's drive by the schools, where all the seniors drove by their elementary schools and, waved and beat the horn. It was a very nice and sentimental day. I think we have a very ambitious schedule here, given the circumstances. And what I would really ask is for the people that want to help to work with each building's PTA. That's what the PTA is there for. They're designed. The PTA works with the principal and the administration of the building. And certainly everybody wants to help. And look, we appreciate that. But there are also a lot of rules that we have to follow, in addition to the health and safety protocols that we're going to have to follow. And so please stay tuned. I promise to keep you updated. The buildings will begin to update you. We said to the principals that we're going to be speaking to them in the beginning of March and begin to start to map out where we're going, because we do believe we're going to hear, as the weather gets nicer, we are going to be given a little bit more leeway. But we have a beautiful campus here now, and we want our students to, first and foremost, be back in school, focusing on their academics, but also to enjoy the celebrations. And I keep coming back, the seniors are going to take precedent, because this is 13 years here in East Islip, and they deserve to be recognized, honored, and have their moment in the sun. But the only way this is going to happen if everybody takes a deep breath, everybody is committed to working together, and everybody's willing to, know their role and follow their role. And really, we need to support the building administration. We need to support the teachers. We need to support the PTAs, who this is what they've been doing for years. And under very, very adverse circumstances, I think we've come up with an appropriate and I think an ambitious schedule for the spring, and I'm looking forward to it. So, thank you very much.
Any other new business? No? Do we have any public comment? Okay.
Okay. Hello. I know a lot of this was addressed already, but I just felt it was important for me to come up and reiterate a few points. So my name is Maggie King. I'm a senior at the high school. I came here tonight to discuss, again, a few of the topics we already talked about. I just wanted to thank you all for making the decision to send the high school students back full-time. It meant a lot to me since I am a senior. With that being said, I did feel it was necessary to address some of the overly protective protocol the district and the state are taking when it comes to social distancing in music classes. I wanted to preface this by acknowledging I recognize a lot of the mandates are beyond district control. However, that should not discourage East Islip from expressing their disapproval to those in higher government power. As of right now in New York State, chorus and band students are required to be at least 12 feet apart in order to participate in music ensembles, as opposed to the normal 6 feet. This recommendation is extremely unreasonable. It's making teachers and students' jobs much more difficult, and don't get me wrong, I'm really grateful to be able to participate in these courses at all, but I can speak on behalf of all my music peers when I say the distance is really negatively affecting our musicianship, and it's showing. When high contact sports such as wrestling are able to play without any social distancing restriction, it's absolutely denounced to me as to why I can't sing 6 feet apart from my friends while I'm wearing a mask. If we continue the 12 feet socially distant, the opportunities are limited as to any kind of performances in the spring, and that would really crush me as a senior, and I'm very involved in the music department, so that would really take a toll on me as well as my classmates. It's really absurd to me that athletes are able to physically touch, sweat, and breathe on each other, but I'm not allowed to be close enough to hear the person next to me while I'm playing in an ensemble. Now, I also want to discuss the class of 2021. We definitely experienced a year unlike any other. We all recognize and appreciate the district's measures to attempt to keep us in normalcy, but that has been very tough to complete. At the beginning of the year, we were promised a senior event every single month. This promise has not been kept, and yes, there were a lot of fundraisers. The only true senior event that was in school was our senior breakfast in November, which was still when we were in cohorts. Keeping this in mind, but going into the school year, me and my peers had not expected a lot of anything, but the countless and the continuous stream of broken promises by the district is making an already horrific turn of events much more disappointing for all of us. And I think a majority of my class can agree that all we really want is to have time together as a class. I also just wanted to address that the high school's efforts to address the seniors and their families was done in an extremely degrading manner that infuriated the class. So tonight, really, why I was here, I'm in hopes that the community and the school district will acknowledge the fact that the class of 2021 is missing out on so much more than 1 or 2 gatherings. We've been robbed of our most memorable year of high school, and although at this point we can't change what occurred in the past, it's my hope that moving forward the district is able to proceed with caution and work to ensure that we can finish our last 120 days as East Islip High School students with brighter memories to tell our children about. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. I just want to say, you heard Mr. Dolan's comments about the focus on the seniors. There's a lot of talk going on. We were made aware that the advisors are meeting, and I think it's next week, a week and a half. So we're hoping that they'll make more announcements for the seniors to give, we want to give you every opportunity, but again, we have to be flexible, just in case. But it looks like everything's moving in the right direction. So keep plugging along. But I agree. If the wrestlers can wrestle, you should be able to sing. And you should be able to I agree with you. So thank you for your comments.
Yeah, thank
Anybody
you.
else want to add? The state.
Yeah.
The state. Yeah, the state with the guidelines for, But I'm hoping that once we can gets warmer, you guys can go outside and sing your hearts out too.
Yeah.
And so. All right, thank you.
Maggie, first of all, that was very well said, very
Thank
well
you.
spoken.
Thank you.
Makes me proud you let me write that letter for you.
I appreciate it.
I'm very proud of that. Look, senior year is never easy. Senior year is always an emotional roller coaster of all kinds of feeling, and it's only been exacerbated by COVID. But again, I applaud the board, the folks to my left, the teachers and the staff who are allowing us to get back. You said the key. I mean, look, the thing I think that we're all understanding, and I've always known this, but we really, appreciate more and more, and I appreciate it every day, is you should have heard the middle school kids today when I said, we'll just stay home, and you can stay home and go to school, and they said, no, we want to be in school. And the real camaraderie doesn't come from exotic trips or exotic things. It's the day-to-day interaction with your friends. And I think your teachers, your administrators, your teacher aides, the custodians, everybody who's working hard, your parents, we're working hard. And, I'm proud of the fact that you folks are ahead of the curve. And remember, we've only been really back together for 14 days, and the class meetings historically start to heat up around now. We start to plan the events. If we're going to be having a prom on the property, that's going to be a chance. That's going to be a great bonding experience because we're going to need a lot of people to help decorate, and I'll volunteer to help clean up. I'm not real good with the decorating, but the bonding comes from being together. And as far as the restrictions for music, oh Lord, I wish I could give you an answer for that. It really doesn't make any sense. Nobody's been able to explain it. And we want to work with everybody so that we're looking, and I believe they are, the gentleman who's in charge of the State Music Association, or he's president of the State Music Association, Chris can help me out, wrote a wonderful, wonderful letter that we all supported, saying let our music people play, let our theater people act, so we want it all, but we're still going to go cautiously, and like I said, we have to limit the crowds, but it's a huge step that in a couple of Fridays we're going to have a few parents be able to watch their kids put together something that's actually pretty cool, and it sounds like we're going to have concerts, and it sounds like the senior class is beginning to gel, and they're going to have some events. And like I said, if we're going to pull off a prom on the property, you're going to see it. You and your friends are going to spend a lot of time together, and it's going to be a lot of great memories. So just we want everybody to wear their masks, stay safe, be safe outside in the community, and let's make this a spring to never forget. How's that sound? That's our goal.
Sounds good. I will hold you to that. Thank you
You
very
can
much.
hold me to it.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
John, you mentioned that letter on the music kids' behalf. Has there been any response to that? Do we know? If Chris knows even? Was there any response? I mean, it's so ridiculous. Have they said anything as to even why? Is it still in place? A month away.
Yeah, I'm going to follow up to what Maggie said, and I appreciate a lot of the items that I wanted to talk about. You did already address tonight, but the fact that March 25th we're getting feedback about our music program, to me, is unacceptable. A lot of my concern has to do with the children who are in music and in the arts that have been kind of pushed to the side. They have been. They're still being pushed to the side. Now we're saying there's not even going to be a meeting happening until March 25th to address the possibility of adjusting the existing guidelines that are completely ridiculous. We've talked about how the sports can happen. We've talked about how person-to-person body contact can happen, but my child cannot sing with a mask on. My child cannot do these certain things. He cannot play with the orchestra in a normal fashion that facilitates growth and appreciation. So to me, I'm looking to the board and the school district to take a more active stance in it. I don't know whose job it is. I know it's not my job. I can't go to the school, to the Suffolk County people in charge or the New York State people in charge, but this district needs to fight for their art students and their music students as much as they fight for the sports kids. And I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm thrilled that they're able to do what they're able to do right now. But you know what? These guys need to have something too. So I'm going to read really quick. I sent a letter the other day. I got 2 responses. Mrs. Carney, I appreciate the fact that you responded to me. Mr. Dolan, I appreciated our 53-minute phone call that we had the other day on your way home from work. My daughter was laughing when she came out and she said, "You're still on the phone with him?" I'm writing this to all of you in hopes that these issues will be discussed and positive decisions will be made to move forward ASAP so our music and art students do not get left behind. This is in response to the NYSMA letter sent to the New York State Department of Health regarding changing the arbitrary 12-foot rule for our student musicians, which is currently the deciding factor in live performances happening. My senior has been singing since 3rd grade when it was first offered. She's done NYSMA, SCMEA, performed solos, you name it. She deserves to be able to sing in honors choir in the spring alongside of her fellow classmates, as well as perform the senior song, as all the years before them have. It breaks my heart that once again our musicians are the ones forgotten about or not deemed as important as the athletes. How is wrestling safe, but singing with the mask isn't? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the athletes don't deserve to play, but don't our musicians deserve the same? I want to watch her sing for the last time on the stage that she loves. I want to tear up from her happiness, sadness, and hope that comes with the final performance. She needs that, she deserves that. In addition, it is rumored amongst the students that the annual art show will also be a virtual event. I would like to know if that is true or not, which you addressed that. They're going to hope to do it in person, which is fantastic. With the guidelines changing for what is now acceptable distancing, masking, etc., is beyond reasonable to put on an art show where families can view not only their own students' work, but a chance to view all of the art that our talented artists have created. Make a plan, extend the amount of days that it's open for viewing, have families sign up for certain blocks of time so you can control the amount of guests at any one time. Once again, it is not fair to these hard-working kids that their work isn't deemed as important. I'm not going to really read the rest because you've addressed it, but I just want everybody on the board and everybody in the community to acknowledge the fact that these are the kids that are normally, I'm not going to say left behind, but they're not pushed to the forefront. The sports parents are much more vocal. They're much more organized. They're much more in your face about it, and that's fantastic. It's kudos. It's an obvious thing. But somebody needs to say that the rest of them need to also be able to do the things that are life to them. My daughter draws. That is her life. Maggie plays. That is her life. I mean, those are the things that are important to them, and those are the things that we need to make sure that they're able to do before they leave East Islip, regardless of what needs to get done to get us there. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Laura.
Don't underestimate our EI Maps parents.
I'm sorry?
They
Thank
do
you.
a
We've
great,
heard-
don't underestimate the EI Maps parents. They do a great
Listen,
job.
I
They're
know.
very vocal.
We've heard a lot from the
I
art
know.
and theater we have, and we support them. It's, you know, at this point, we can't do more than what we can do.
I
So
know.
I
But
wish
it's
it was
just like-
more.
Like the fact that you guys didn't even know if there was a letter responded to, and the fact that it's not until the 25th of March that, like, we need to put pressure on them to change these guidelines ASAP, because you know what, before another month passes, let's get these kids practicing and performing together, and in a way that it's possible to actually enjoy it.
Okay, couple things. I want to clear something up. I didn't realize it was 53 minutes, but my wife was
It
very,
was 53 minutes.
my wife was very grateful that you kept me out of the house for an extra 53 minutes. So she did. But no, and here's a prediction. And again, you know, I like saying these things. I read this one time where Thomas Edison used to call a press conference and announce an invention before he invented it, because it put pressure on him to do it. We said we were going to have graduation. We did. We now have a very, I think, and look, I don't want to get into the politics of what other school districts do. You know, we're cutting a path here. I believe, and I'm going to go out on a limb, by the next time we have a board meeting, I think we're going to see some changes in the music. Now, I didn't know that they had a meeting scheduled for March 25th, which seems way too long for me. Like, you know, we were shocked at some of the things, the sports people. You know, we were told a week before that they were going to have a winter season, and we all went, what? And you're going to wrestle? But I give the board a lot of credit, because they're supporting my office, and we are beginning to say, look, we're going to have something, and we're going to do it, and we're going to have parents there. When it comes to the logistics, I'm going to defer to Mr. Nesky, Mrs. Affelt, and the music teachers, because they taught me that you don't need risers in the practice rooms when we did the construction over there. They said you don't need them. I thought you needed them. The 12-foot rule doesn't make any sense to me, and I know I have the support of the Board of Education, and we are working back channels. You know, today I was involved in a meeting, and I'm saying flat out, if you can wrestle, you can be closer together. If you can wrestle, and if you can go see if you can see students participate in athletics, you can go to academics, which are the ceremonies, and you can go to the arts. And we're not going to wait to be told that's okay. We're telling our public that now we're not going to be reckless. We're not going to, we're not going to open up the gates and let everybody in. We're going to be, the student and their two guests. I have to be very careful. They're two guests. But I think my prediction, and I'll go out on a limb, I think we're going to I think our next board meeting is what, March 11th? I think we're going to know more by then. And I think we're going to continue to methodically march back to, I always say this, I don't want to go back to where we were on, March 15th, 2020, because we've learned from this. It's the fact that wearing masks has eliminated, the people don't seem to be getting the flu. Maybe wearing masks are a good idea so people don't get the flu. I want to be better. I want East Islip to be better. And I think the fact that the music teachers are talking to Dr. Wadawa about being able to set up performances even at the elementary level and in a controlled fashion so that the students can perform, the parents can see it, and like I said, our focus is going to be working from the seniors back down. And you listen, the politicians, the pundits, the prognosticators, the advice givers, they come and go. But we I think we can do this safely. I think we can do this in a healthy fashion. I think it's going to be good for everybody. And I do believe we're going to hear clarification or something on that 12-foot rule well before March 25th if my meetings and my sources are correct. You know, so.
I do want to thank you because I know this has been a ridiculously difficult year, and you guys have all stood by it. The communication has definitely been lapsing, and my only parting word of advice would be is that I hope you have a very strong person looking for that 10th,